My friends, finally, we may yet see government accountability. And it's wild how it's come about. Because Donald Trump has always been called a moron. He's been called the worst president. They call him a criminal because they've convicted him as a felon. It's interesting that the first convicted felon president is the one who's pushing for government accountability. Now, what I mean by that is Donald Trump has signed executive orders to declassify the JFK, RFK, and MLK files. Now, what does that mean for us, you ask? Well, it means a lot of things. So first off, I know you probably know who they are, but I'm going to say them anyway. John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King were all killed. This is something that we're all aware of, right? And for decades, these files have been classified because there's something in there that the government didn't want us to know. They were meant to be classified until 2017. And then Trump signed some orders to keep them classified. And then Biden did the same. He kept them classified as well. But at this point in time, Trump has said that it's time for the American people to know what really happened. It's time for the American people to see who the government is and to get that accountability. And so he signed orders that will not immediately release them, unfortunately. There is basically, for the JFK files, they have 15 days to give them a plan to release them completely unredacted. And then 45 days for the RFK and MLK files, once again, completely unredacted to be released, right? And, everyone has always said, there's always been all these conspiracy theories all around the web, that it was the CIA. The CIA killed JFK. The CIA killed RFK. The CIA killed MLK. And honestly, I'd probably believe pretty much all of that, especially for JFK. Because if you don't know about the history of it, here's what happened, right? So JFK was killed during the height of the Cold War. And this was a time where he was saying he was going to clean up the government, right? He had the same plans that Trump does currently, which is we're going to clean up the government. We're going to make everything more accountable. We're going to make everything more transparent. And with JFK, he saw that, during the Cold War, the CIA did a ton of different missions that were meant to gather intelligence, undermine communists, so on and so forth, right? And they failed over and over again because the CIA was absolutely terrible at their job, right? And JFK was basically saying, these people, this is their job, and they're terrible at it. They're failing. So he was going to get rid of the CIA. And at that point in time, the CIA decided, you know what? We're more important than the president. The intelligence apparatus of the United States is more important than any president because they decided that was what was going to keep us safe. And I will say that the CIA does do useful things occasionally in terms of gathering intelligence, but they've also decided that they're the ones in charge. And a lot of people say that's when the deep state started, when the CIA had JFK killed. Now, obviously, that is a conspiracy theory. That is not confirmed. That's just speculation, right? But almost everyone believes that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't do it. There's so many different places, so many different people who say, there's no way that the ballistics would have worked from where he was supposed to be. There's no way that he could have shot Kennedy the way that he was shot, so on and so forth. And Lee Harvey Oswald was screaming, I didn't do it, whenever he was taken in. A lot of people believe that he was a scapegoat. Honestly, I'm one of them because I don't trust the government. I don't trust the CIA especially because, throughout all of history, all they've shown is that they have contempt for the U.S. people, for the American people, and they think that they're the most important. They think that they get to have just unilateral, jurisdiction to do whatever the hell they want in this country. It's wild. And the same thing with RFK and MLK, right? Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which we all know, RFK Jr., has come out many times and said that he did not believe that the person, who was convicted of killing RFK actually did it. Now, the person was Sirhan Sirhan. He was a Palestinian immigrant, and, well, not necessarily an immigrant, but a Palestinian man who was upset that the U.S. was supporting Israel and this, that, and the other, right? And RFK has visited him before, RFK Jr., and he said he didn't believe he did it. Now, the rest of the Kennedy family says he did, but RFK Jr. says, no, I don't think he did. And the same thing with MLK, right? He was killed by a quote-unquote white nationalist, but the MLK family has, and you know what, I'll say, not even quote-unquote, he was a white nationalist. I mean, he killed MLK, right? But the MLK family, the King family, has long said that it was not just him. He did not act alone. It was a larger conspiracy. And most people believe that too, I would think. Because you got to think back to the time, right? the civil rights era was at the height of its movement, right? And the government saw it as a threat, because you got to think about what the government wants, right? You got to think about, does the government want what's best for its people, or does the government want more power? Now, I'll say when the government started, when the U.S. started, yeah, I want to know what was best for the people. But it has since morphed into this amorphous blob that only wants power, only wants money, only wants what's best for it, not what's best for the people. So much so that they just want indentured servitude. They want race wars. They want to be able to have an upper class, a middle class, and a working class, and then a slave class as well. And, the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights era really, really put a damper on that, because for a long time we had segregation. We had that, not really, but kind of sort of slave class, right? We had the underclass who were not the same. They were quote unquote separate but equal. When we all know they weren't equal. They were looked down upon. They were given shitty jobs. They were not allowed really to go far in life. I mean, think about it, right? You had Black Wall Street in Oklahoma, and that was burned down. And nobody knows how it happened. Now, we all know how it happened. Everybody knows what happened. But nobody knows what happened. Which is that some black people were getting ahead. And that was a problem. They couldn't be having that. That's wrong. That's bad. Can't have that. We can't have black people thinking that they're people. What is this? No. God, no. It's terrible, right? And so the government, likely the CIA, which didn't exist then, but, the FBI, or something along those lines, burned it down. They got rid of it. Because you can't be having the slave class getting ahead. Can't be having them thinking they're people, right? It's totally wrong. Either way, I've ranted long enough on this. Let's get into this from the BBC. Trump orders plan for release of JFK and MLK assassination files. U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered officials to make plans to declassify documents related to 3 of the most consequential assassinations in U.S. history: the killings of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office on Thursday, and everything will be revealed. The order directs top administration officials to present a plan to declassify the documents within 15 days. That does not make certain it will happen, however. It's going to happen. It would be wild to have this order and then it not happen. I think Trump's going to push for it to happen regardless of what the CIA says. President John F. Kennedy was killed in Dallas in 1963. His brother Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated while running for president in California in 1968. Just 2 months after King, America's most famous civil rights leader, was murdered in Memphis, Tennessee. So the CIA and FBI did exist. So once again, CIA. Many of the documents related to the investigations have been released in the years since, although thousands still remain redacted, particularly related to the sprawling JFK investigation. President John F. Kennedy was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, we say. That's speculation, really. A Marine veteran who had defected to the Soviet Union and later returned to the United States. A government commission determined that Oswald acted alone. Yes, once again, the government has said, "We've investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing," like usual. However, unanswered questions have long dogged the case and have given rise to alternative theories about the government, the involvement of government agents, the mafia, and other nefarious characters. Nefarious characters? Why did I say nefarious? As well as more outlandish conspiracy theories. Opinion polls over decades have indicated that most Americans don't believe Oswald was the sole assassin. In 1992, Congress passed a law to release all documents related to the investigation within 25 years. Both Trump in his first term and President Joe Biden released piles of JFK-related documents, but thousands, out of a total of millions, still remain partially or fully secret. Trump promised to declassify all of the files in his first term, but held back on his promise after CIA and FBI officials persuaded him to keep some files secret, because they would be incriminated. Who would have thunk it? Today's executive order states that continued secrecy is not consistent with the public interest. As a statement of intention, it's great that the president has put his promise into words on paper. That's important, said Jefferson Morley, a former Washington Post journalist, JFK assassination expert, and editor of the online newsletter JFK Facts. But the details and implementation are everything. This process is just beginning. How exactly this is going to be carried out is not at all clear, he said. Recent document releases have revealed new details about the circumstances surrounding the assassination, including about the CIA's extensive monitoring of Oswald. They wanted to find a scapegoat. In 2023, Paul Landis, an 88-year-old former Secret Service agent who witnessed the assassination at close range, said he took a bullet from the car after Kennedy was shot. Experts say the detail complicates the official story that a single bullet hit both the president and Texas Governor John Connally, who was riding in the motorcade and survived the shooting. Mr. Morley said new information has cast further doubt on the theory that Oswald acted alone and predicted a full release of all the redacted documents could add significantly to public knowledge. But he said there may not be a smoking gun, and that CIA and other security officials will push to maintain some level of secrecy. The story's not over, he said. During the signing ceremony at the White House on Thursday, Trump asked for the pen he used to sign the order to be given to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is RFK's son, JFK's nephew, and the president's nominee for health secretary. RFK Jr. is long cast doubt on the official narratives about his uncle's assassination, as well as that of his father, Robert F. Kennedy. Kennedy Sr. was killed in a Los Angeles ballroom by Sirhan Sirhan, a Palestinian man angry at U.S. support for Israel. RFK Jr. has spoken to Sirhan in prison and stated that he does not believe Sirhan killed his father, although other Kennedy family members reject that claim. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot to death by white nationalist James Earl Ray. Members of the King family have alleged Ray did not act alone and was part of a larger conspiracy. Follow the twists and turns of blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Listen, man. Here's the thing. They tried to kill Trump. Now, I don't know if it was a government conspiracy. I don't know if it might have been just one person acting alone. But they tried to kill Trump, and by the grace of God, he wasn't killed. So we've got a history of assassinating important political figures, right? They killed JFK. They killed RFK. They killed MLK. They tried to kill Reagan. They tried to kill Teddy Roosevelt. They tried to kill Andrew Jackson. Now, back then, those were not tried to kill by the government, right? They were individual people. Same thing with Teddy Roosevelt, individual person. With Reagan, though, we don't know. They say it's an individual person, but who knows? Same thing with JFK, MLK, and RFK. They say, we know who did it. It was this person, that's that. When it could have just been the government getting rid of someone who was a problem. The machine cleaning up. The machine taking out the trash, for lack of a better term. Because the machine, which we all know is the blob in government, wants to maintain its existence. It wants to make sure that it continues to survive, regardless of what happens in government, right? And just like everything else that has a survival instinct, like a cornered animal, it fights back. And it fought back against JFK and RFK, because both of which would have cleaned up the government. And that's a problem, because they would have eliminated the CIA, they might have eliminated the FBI, and so on and so forth. And if we eliminate the administrative state, if we eliminate the oligarchs, then who will be left to govern our nation besides the elected leaders that the American people wanted to govern their nation? So hopefully we do get some information on this. Hopefully they do tell us the truth, and hopefully it is unredacted, so we can know for certain whether or not the CIA was involved in these things. Because I bet you they were. Now, there are people who will say they weren't, but I don't know. I take it with a grain of salt. Until we see proof, I won't believe it. But if we do see proof that the government wasn't involved, then I will rescind everything I've said today, because if there's proof they weren't involved, then they weren't, and that's just that. But we'll see how it goes, and hopefully, relatively soon, we'll have some clarity on this. Either way, guys, next time it's coming up later today, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and we'll see you then.